Welcome to Our Girl Relationships. On this channel, we discuss day-to-day problems people face in their lives. Let's start with the video. I'm a mother of a 16-year-old daughter who was born with multiple disabilities. We've always struggled with money to afford medical care and other expenses. Things got better after I inherited my father's house. I no longer pay rent. For now, only my name is on the deed. The mortgage had been paid off while my father owned the house. My daughter lives with me at home and receives disability benefits. My boyfriend has been living with us for 2.5 years now, and we've had conversations about the future of my daughter. He told me that in case I pass on before him, we both have chronic conditions, then my daughter will be better off living in a nursing home because he won't be eligible to take care of her. He said I shouldn't feel hurt. He said this and should understand that it's better that he was honest and upfront with me so I could start planning for my daughter's future. I thought about what he said a lot and got very concerned for my daughter's future as someone who can function but still needs assistance because of her disability is expected to get worse in the future. I came to realize that I needed to ensure that she had at least something to fall back on in case she needed to pay for assistance or afford medical devices. I had a conversation with my boyfriend this morning about my decision to put my daughter's name on the deed of the house when she's 18. He was confused and he asked why, and I explained, I want her to have a secure future and the house is all I have to give her. He said I was wrong because I seemed to forget that he, as my partner, gets to share making this kind of decision and have the house as a shared asset when we're married. I said even if we're married, the house was inherited and owned before marriage, so it's not and won't be a shared asset. He clearly didn't expect that and argued that the logical thing for me to do is to add his name to the deed, not my daughter, and that he never saw anyone do that with total disregard for their partners. He said I should add him to the deed if I won't reconsider adding my daughter. I asked him why I should add him, and he said as my husband, but still said he's not sure about getting married or when. Again, I explained that even if we get married, I won't share this house with him because I owned it before marriage. He got so upset with me, calling me petty because I made this decision after he stated that he won't be able to care for my daughter and will put her in a nursing home. I said that's not true, but he got up and walked out and still hasn't returned home or answered my calls yet. Boyfriend has shown his true colors. He feels entitled to your property and has zero care or desire to care for your daughter. Consider this information carefully before you make a future with him. Securing a financial future for your daughter is wise. Check with a financial advisor lawyer who knows the best ways to go about this, not the a-hole. Dump him. He sounds like he was hoping to abandon your daughter in a home and get a free house should you die. However, you need to speak to a lawyer to make sure that your daughter being on the deed won't prevent her from getting her full share of disability Medicare if you live in the US because people with assets don't usually qualify. Yes, get an attorney and get your estate in order. I think a trust would be appropriate in this situation. Deed the house to the trust, have the trust solely and directly benefit your daughter to ensure she has care for as long as possible, and do not name your boyfriend as trustee. You're so smart to refuse to put your boyfriend on the deed even after marriage. If you do end up getting married, get a prenup, not the a-hole. It may be best to put the ownership of the house in a trust and give your daughter lifetime residency or control of it. Speak to an estate attorney, not just any old lawyer, and figure out the best way to convey the property to her. Not the a-hole. Girl, screw him, and I mean that. As a mother, you're doing exactly what you're supposed to do. Protect your children no matter what. She's disabled and he's clearly made it clear that she's on her own. He's a grown man. He shouldn't be leaning on your father's generosity when you die. Like, no. And he's not in a hurry to marry you until you put the deed in his name. Like, no. It's manipulation and greed. Stop calling him and hope and pray he shoves it up his behind. Your daughter deserves to be taken care of and looks like he wishes he would have gotten the same from his family. But he didn't and can't tell you what to do with your father's house and what to do with your child, especially not as a boyfriend who doesn't care enough to think about your daughter. Not the a-hole, not the a-hole, not the a-hole, but a damn good mother. Not the a-hole. The parts of your story that concerned me were this. He said I was wrong because I seemed to forget that he, as my partner, gets to share making this kind of decision and have the house as a shared asset when we're married. He clearly didn't expect that and argued that the logical thing for me to do is to add his name to the deed, not my daughter, and that he never saw anyone do that with total disregard for their partners. Throw in. He told me that in case I pass on before him, we both have chronic conditions, then my daughter will be better off living in a nursing home because he won't be eligible to take care of her, and I'm a bit concerned. Not that he's wrong. I don't know what your daughter's condition is, and it usually is the case that expert care in an assisted living facility can give better care than a family member. But that he so quickly moved to plan B without considering a plan A, as if he's looking at the house you inherited as if it belonged to him and not to you to dispose off after you pass as you will. And it all feels like red flags to me. The thing is, your daughter may not be able to live in your home after you're gone, but the home can be sold and the proceeds used to help pay for a better standard of living for your daughter. And the reality is you've put your daughter before your boyfriend, which is appropriate in cases like this. Be aware this may end your relationship. Not the a-hole. If you stay with this man, please invest in time with a lawyer to really get your affairs in order. You want to have things done right and documented properly beyond just the house deed itself, with no room for him to try to weasel his way in as a guardian, conservator, or some other title that could leave your daughter vulnerable. You don't want to leave the house to her only to have him in charge of her business and finances, selling the house for her and leaving her with nothing. He's not in this relationship for her or with her best interests at heart, not in the big picture sort of way at least. He's made it clear that she can't count on him if anything happens to you and that he disagrees with your decisions, so he definitely shouldn't be having a say in where she lives, what doctors she sees, etc. I would not want someone who was so willing to tell my mother he'd put me in a nursing home, making all life choices for me, if I was deemed unable to do so myself or found myself needing more help while also grieving my mother. Next story. My brother Aiden, 20 male, and I, 22 female, have not spoken to each other in 5 years. These years of silence from his end was because, as my father quotes, I kept making fun of him. Tardiness for school, spending choices, disorganized planning, etc. This is very biased because it is from my point of view, but it doesn't take away the fact that I still hurt him and it was my fault. However, I don't think it's fair to say that I was the sole contributor to this estranged relationship. There have been many instances where Aiden has acted out and done some hurtful things to me as well. My short height, body hair, driving skills. I've accepted my part in that I was a terrible person and older sister, so I tried to reach out several times within those 5 years to reconcile, but Aiden continued to ignore me, which is understandable. Since then, I left things as they were and tried to move forward with my own life. For the past 2 years, I usually drive home frequently from college to visit, but I finally realized the reason I was unhappy coming home was because 1. The lingering tension and unresolved conflict with Aiden made things difficult, and 2. I was still expected to clean up after him, despite the fact that there was no sense of common decency from him towards me, even if I truly deserved it. Early this school year, I vocalized my displeasure with my parents that if Aiden came home to visit from college, I would not be doing so. It was so insulting to me that letting Aiden piggyback off the housework, I did feel like I had no self-respect for myself, especially when he has chosen to no longer speak to me and would resort to glaring sneering instead. So either we visited separately, or if we both came home together, I would not help around the house for the duration that he was staying. I was firm in my stance, so my parents seemed to leave me be. Come this weekend, about a month and a half into the semester, I first called prior to confirming I would be visiting before I drove up. Just 15 minutes after bringing in my belongings, Aiden comes out of the room with food plates and drops them in the sink, not before rolling his eyes at me and going back in. A rough back and forth occurred. My parents told me I was being a selfish coward and that I needed to learn to deal with living near each other instead of breaking the family apart. I countered that Aiden and I never resolved our personal issues, and I was no longer willing to live near someone who wasn't willing to give me the bare minimum. I gathered my things and immediately drove back up to my apartment, ignoring calls and voicemails. So Reddit, am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole, but your parents aren't better than your brother, even worse. They let your relationship become that bad as teenagers and now disrespect your stance and wishes. Means they disrespect you as a person, and this can't be fixed by an apology. Now they blame you for the situation they enabled over years. They sound like a complete parental failure. Sorry. But your parents are for letting their children's relationship get to a point where they weren't speaking even at the age 15 and 17. You needed family therapy about a decade ago, and they were remiss for not getting on it. Not the a-hole. It sounds like you both made fun of one another in a generalized sibling way. Aiden decided to be done with you forever, and your parents are enforcing sexist chore expectations on you in his favor, despite the fact he's trying to pretend you don't exist. I wouldn't blame you for not going home when he's there, even if he were speaking to you, if you were expected to clean up after a 20-year-old man. They have hands and stuff usually. Not the a-hole. You stated your boundaries and called to verify. You tried to reconcile, he ignored. But the fact he rolls his eyes and glasses makes me think that you weren't all that bad and your parents coddled him too much and were content to make you the scapegoat. I kept making fun of him, tardiness for school, spending choices, disorganized planning, etc. Sounds like big sister concerns and less making fun of, in my opinion, versus making fun of his hobbies, friends, style, music, etc. I'm probably biased too, though. I often got on my little brother for the same things and others, only to be told by my parents to stop making fun of bullying him. I'm not the parent. Now I'm at fault for his problems because I should have been more involved or nicer. Not the a-hole. Aiden has been giving you the silent treatment for years. Your attempts at reconciliation have been rebuffed many times. You tried, he's not interested. You've accepted that he slammed the door shut and have moved on. At this point, Aiden is just being a big baby. What 20-year-old man expects his mommy or big sister to do his dishes for him? His goal is to punish you, and you would be justified in ignoring him if he came to you to reconcile. I can see him giving the silent treatment to his wife or girlfriend in the future. He's not a nice person, and you shouldn't have to put up with his subtle form of abuse. Also, don't let him make you feel guilty or insecure. The reason he won't tell you what you did to offend him is probably because it is so insignificant that no reasonable and mature person would be offended by it. You probably ate his cupcake or something, and he's going to make you pay for the rest of your life. Next story. My husband's friend is a schmuck. He's just your average mean-spirited guy who likes to act obnoxiously and is always busy trying to prove himself right in everything. He and my husband grew up together in Mexico, where he's originally from, but my husband moved back to the States and he followed, and they've become inseparable for years. I have a 7-month-old son that I leave in my husband's care when I'm working. His friend recently got back from his visit to his family's farm in Mexico, and unbeknownst to me, he visited yesterday while I was at work. He spent time with my husband and son till 7 p.m. I got home and heard noises coming from the kitchen. I entered and saw my husband and his friend sitting at the table eating. I saw my son sitting in my husband's friend's lap, and with his hands on my husband's friend, he was trying to feed him something. I take a closer look and saw it was actually a red pepper chili. I was in shock. I immediately took my son and yelled at my husband's friend, asking what the hell he was doing. He motioned with the red pepper in his hand, saying it was nothing, just some chili red pepper he got from his family's farm on visit. I lashed out and asked how he thought it was a good idea to try to give my 7-month-old red peppers. My husband said I should calm down, as his friend explained that he was just letting him taste it to develop taste buds. I said those were hot chilies that not even a grown adult could handle, and my son already has issues with his stomach. My husband's friend said, "Come on, how do you think Mexican babies survive? I'm teaching him to become a man just like his dad and I. Don't be that, Mom." I absolutely lost my temper and told him to leave. My husband said I was overreacting and tried to get me to stop freaking out, but I said it's his friend who tried to feed our son hot chili who was out of his mind. My husband asked his friend to apologize, but he refused and accused me of being overbearing. I told him he's banned from my house after what he did, and he left looking mad. My husband said I should have never yelled at his friend, kicked him out, and banned him after he came and brought food for us. He said he wasn't actually trying to feed the chili to our son, but just making him taste it. But I argued that this isn't acceptable and that his friend was being disrespectful. My husband thinks I should apologize for overreacting, but I declined. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. Introducing new solids at that age should be a decision for parents to make. End of story. At 7 months, sure, they're eating vegetables, but it's not up to this dude to decide which ones. Holy crap. Also, Mexican babies at this age don't eat a bunch of hot peppers on the reg. He's pulling that out of his behind. You don't hand a 7-month-old hot pepper primarily because they'll get it on their hands and then rub their eyes. Some random friend shouldn't be handling this. You are not overbearing. It sounds like you're a good parent. I disagree with your husband for wanting you to apologize, but I also understand that he wants peace and that's probably his motivation. But he needs to set some limits. I'm wondering why he didn't stop his friend from doing this. That's concerning. Oh yeah, I've been through this. When I wanted to add hot peppers to something, it would be in a stew form, or I could spoon feed it at that age. Otherwise, it's just carnage. Babies can totally try hot peppers, but it should be done cautiously and by caretakers, not random people who thinks it's hilarious. Also, whenever trying a brand new food at that age, it's good to know where the Benadryl is, if that's an option, just because you never know. Fortunately, I never ran into that problem, but it's good to think about this stuff. Not the a-hole. I would have slapped him, honestly, and then the dad for thinking even a taste would be acceptable. The baby wouldn't trust food being put in his mouth after that, not to mention how much pain he would be in. If you want to have him try spices, start light, not full-blown spice. As a mother, I'd catch a charge for kicking that man's behind for doing something like that. Unacceptable. As would any Mexican mom. I don't know how he thought this would be okay just because he's Mexican. I am too, and the last time I saw a family friend try to feed his granddaughter salsa, his daughter went full crazy on him, almost pushing him off the chair and effectively ending the cookout. We are always hard on the kids, but a good Mexican mom will beat the crap out of anyone that tries to hurt her babies, even husbands. Not the a-hole. I'm Mexican and we don't give our babies a chili pepper all on its own. It's mixed with food, which is fine. The bigger picture is that he disrespected you once you were visibly upset, but he did have consent from the dad, so that's another issue. See, I needed your reading of this to realize he was giving the baby an actual red pepper and not just food with red peppers in it. I'm half Cahoon and my kids have had cayenne in their food since they could eat. But it's dried and ground peppers sprinkled, not the full freaking pepper. My 2-year-old had jambalaya today and he said it was so good that an adult near us said it was too spicy. So spice isn't an issue if they're enjoying it. But the actual pepper, why? I'm almost 40 and I'm not just chewing on cayenne peppers for the fun of it. A bit of heat is fine. A full bite of a red chili pepper at 7 months is not. Not the a-hole. You have a husband problem. He's putting his friendship with his friend over the welfare of his son. I would be concerned about ever leaving your son alone with his father because you know that he will have his friend over. You need to look at other childcare options. You might want to think long and hard about your marriage, and do not ever apologize to his friend. He's the one who should be apologizing.